Hi everyone, I am Justin. I'm the fitness director for Weight Watchers Clinic. I hold a PhD in exercise and health sciences. And today I want to talk about motivation for exercise. What it is it important? Do we actually need it to make sure that we exercise? So you have probably actually heard people say two different things. One, you don't need motivation. Maybe something like you just need discipline. Or maybe if I could just get a little bit more motivated, I would be able to exercise more. So let's talk about who is right, and then maybe let's dive into a little bit more of the intricacies of what motivation is and why it actually is important. So is motivation important? So all the people that say motivation isn't important, you just need to do it, just do it. Now, those people probably have a fundamental misunderstanding of what motivation actually is. You 100% need motivation for action. Motivation is a very big, broad umbrella term, and it just means all of the brain processes that energize action. Without motivation, there is no action. What they probably are meaning is something a little bit more in depth, and we'll talk about that later. And then you have the people that just say, if I could just get a little bit more motivated, then I would be able to take action. So are those people right? Both camps are a little bit right and a little bit wrong. So let's go ahead and dive into what motivation actually means in the context of exercise. Okay, so motivation being all of the brain processes that drive and energize behavior needs to be lumped into two different categories of motivation. So we have what's called your intentional, or what we can also call your reflective motivation. Think of this as being that logical side of motivation. I know exercise is good for me. I know I should do it. And so I'm gonna try my best to do it. You might know it's good for you. You might have all these other what's called instrumental attitudes related to exercise. I know what I'm gonna get out of it. And that leads to the intention formation. So good intentions, okay? Now, people don't exercise unless they have the good intention to do it. That's one part of motivation that's very, very important. But there's another type of motivation that's called automatic motivation. If you're in the camp where you have ever struggled to act on your good intentions, so I have all the best intentions to do it, but then I don't end up doing it, you have a motivational conflict that makes it hard to act and act consistently. You have a conflict between your reflective motivation and your automatic motivation. Maybe the best example here is I have the best of intentions to exercise after a long day of work. I'm tired, I'm fatigued, I find myself on the couch watching Netflix. I still intend to exercise, but man, is it hard to pull myself away from what I'm doing right now. And usually that results in not acting on your good intentions. Okay, so let's break this concept down even further. And what we're gonna do is we will dive more into that automatic motivation construct. Now, a really great book is called Switch by Dan and Chip Heath. And I've heard this metaphor that I'm about to share in research before, but Dan and Chip Heath use a really good metaphor. They use a metaphor of an elephant and a rider to explain this conflict between your intentional or reflective motivation and your automatic, or you could say reflexive motivation. So in this metaphor, what they talk about is imagine a rider on top of an elephant going down a path. Now that rider represents your good intentions, your reflective motivation. And you can use your good intentions to take action, just like how an elephant rider can direct an elephant maybe for a few steps down the road. But if the elephant wants to go in any direction different than where the rider wants to go, it's gonna go in that direction. Your automatic motivation is much stronger than your reflective motivation. Okay, so if we're fighting against it, we have a problem. It's hard to act on our good intentions, right? How do we get it on our side? This is a really good question. It's going to take some time. And I think that it's really individual. But if I had to give first a general piece of advice, things that everyone can work on right now, is to focus on these two things. One, focus on it becoming a habit. Habit is an important automatic motivational construct. So what's a habit? A habit is an automatic response to a cue in a stable context that results in a reward, okay? And so for that, what we need to do to form a habit is we can use some techniques. For example, one is called an implementation intention. And this is when you say, if, followed by something that you know is going to happen. For example, if I'm done with my coffee, I'll go for a walk. If I'm driving home from work, I'll stop at the gym. We need that prompt in place, okay? That might even be a calendar invite too, so something that you have scheduled, okay? So prompt to action. And the good thing about that is exercise usually makes us feel good, so you get a baked in reward at the end of it. The other thing that I want you to focus on is not just some outcome goal. A lot of us focus on outcome goals. I'm gonna lose 20 pounds. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I'll do my first 5K. Focus on identity-based goals. Focus on becoming, okay? Your goal should be to become a healthy person. Your goal should to become an exerciser, because that will automatically drive behaviors, which subsequently drive the outcomes. Okay, those are things that everybody can focus on, right? Everyone can focus on building a habit. Everyone can focus on making exercise a part of their identity. But there is some uniqueness to also at least making sure automatic motivation, we're not fighting it, okay? And also what to do about it if you're in a case where automatic motivation is working against you. So let's go into that. Now, in talking to thousands of people, there are thoughts and emotions, sometimes negative thoughts, sometimes negative emotions, surrounding your relationship with exercise, or even expectations that need to be reworked. I've talked to people that say, I feel guilty about taking time for myself. I feel guilty about taking that 30 minutes for myself. There's things to do around the house. My husband, usually husband, needs help with X, Y, and Z, or is asking me to do these things. The kids need help. The house needs to be clean. I feel guilty about taking that time for myself. What are we gonna do in that situation? And I've talked to a lot of people in that situation. So the expectations that you put on yourself or other people put on you are through repetitive behavior. I talked to somebody that she couldn't imagine getting 30 minutes for herself. Her kids were always all over her. In the past, she did anything that they wanted, and she had to reframe those expectations with her kids, and it took some time. So what this person did was she laid out the new expectations. She said, I'm taking these 30 minutes for exercising for myself. Did it go seamlessly in the beginning? No, of course it didn't. She had to constantly set new expectations. Eventually, she would put her actual schedule on the fridge so her kids knew what was going on throughout her day, and they knew that this was her time. I've talked to other people that they feel like it's going to be an uncomfortable conversation with their significant other because of all these expectations that have been set out. You know, the person that is expected to do things for her husband now needs to have a conversation with her husband that I need these 30 minutes because I'm working on my health. And so without a doubt, there can be some uncomfortable conversations here. And there can be some uncomfortable emotions associated with automatic motivation. And I've heard a lot of stories. So for example, people that might have a physical disability, the actual sensation of exercise can be relatively unpleasant. And just that thought, that association with that unpleasantness or being connected with their body when they might have an injury or a disability, that can be demotivating, and that's totally understandable. For some people, it can be difficult. There's a lot of situations where people might have associations with exercise, and that association might be a negative emotion, a negative rumination, or a thought that goes on, and that can make it hard, for sure. But just understand that these things exist. And what I like to tell people to do is focus on this concept called workability. So workability is if I let these thoughts and emotions guide my behavior, is it going to help me reach my ultimate goal? Is it going to help me reach the goal that exercise and exercising consistently is going to provide? It's difficult. It's going to take some time, but I promise you, if you can set new expectations, if you can act even when you might have those negative associations, it's going to get easier. I promise you that. Let's talk about a different type of automatic motivation that might not be working for you. Let's imagine you find yourself on the couch after a long day of work. Man, it's going to be hard to pull yourself away from that. So fatigue, low affect, all of those things also, while may be potentially temporary, make it very hard to act on our good intentions. Okay, so what do we do in this circumstance? Think about the difficulty of the task. Maybe you planned on exercising for 30 minutes. Maybe that meant a 30-minute walk. Maybe that meant 30 minutes of resistance training. If you're on the couch, that task might feel very difficult. You might not feel motivated for that task. So let's not, what a lot of people do is they try to get more motivated. I'm gonna tell you, don't do that. We're not gonna try to get more motivated. We're gonna make the task easier, okay? So always match the difficulty of the task to your present motivation. Motivation changes throughout the day. You might be really motivated to exercise in the morning, but at night you're exhausted. Maybe that's when you intended to exercise. Don't worry about doing it for 30 minutes. Do it for 5 minutes. Here's the key. This is important. The number one predictor of future behavior is past behavior, okay? So every time you miss, it makes it easier to miss again. But every time you do it, even for 5 minutes, it makes it easier to do it again. So consider lowering the demand of the task. So I hope that this helps in understanding motivation, and it is important in how it actually influences your behavior, but also a little bit more of a distinction between the different types of motivation and how to maybe work around it if some of our specifically automatic motivation might be getting in the way. Please go ahead and ask me any questions that you might have. Happy to field them, and looking forward to sharing another video soon.